Game development caution. So this guy, I guess, is a Fallout developer, a game developer for the game Fallout. And he's just kind of talking about, obviously, from the title, game development caution. I just wanted to wait to watch this with everybody because it's kind of interesting because we do talk about like the decline of gaming, a lot, AAA kind of falling apart, and this kind of feels like we have an expert witness on the stand to talk about maybe the issues going on inside. So let's take a look.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about something that, for a lack of a better phrase, I'm going to call game development caution.
Okay.
Before I start, I'm going to tell you 3 different stories. They're a little different, but then I'll tell you what I'm thinking about. Back when we made Fallout, towards the end, when we were really trying to get it out, we had 2 whiteboards. One whiteboard had a list of features or content that weren't done yet that really needed to get in. And the other whiteboard had a list of what the 10 most egregious bugs were. And next to each person...
That's actually a super good idea. We do something like that similar at my work. Obviously, I work in the health field. I do have actually a whiteboard and an email I send out every day with basically the things going on, things we need to focus on as a team and, get pushed out or expedited and, efficiencies we need to work on better. So it's good to like highlight those things to your team so that way there's like a clear goal in mind for them. Obviously the goal, whether it be business, medical field, right? Like, for-profit medical is getting those orders through the door, getting the people through the door and making it as efficient as possible. So, having something that's a daily reminder of little tiny things we can improve is very important.
Next to each one of these, on these 2 different whiteboards, were listed the person who was assigned to it. We did it in a whiteboard like this so that people could come in the morning.
Some accountability for these people.
It's predated Jira or Confluence or anything like that. They could come in, look at the whiteboard, and go, "Oh, I see something I need to jump on." Worked fine. I don't think I heard any complaint about it. People liked getting stuff off of that. If they saw something, I was like, "I'm on that today."
Okay, cool.
Try doing the exact same thing 10 years later at Carbine. Overwhelmingly, people said, "No, do not do that. I will quit if you do that."
So quit because you have a whiteboard and are holding people accountable. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to think about the time like Carbine would be around, like in doing its thing, like, or at least the time he would do it. So this is probably, I mean, developers are in high demand, but they were probably in higher demand at this point. So they had like this bargaining chip of basically being able to say whatever the hell they want and get whatever the hell they want, just because of the scarcity of developers. I think there's a whole bunch of them now. I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think that the scarcity is quickly going away, but they were able to demand all these crazy things, and accountability is like, that's job 101. And if you can't handle accountability, like, what are you even doing, in a professional environment? That's not just game development. That's work in general. You're going to be held accountable for the work that you do and the thing that you're hired for. You're being paid to do a service. So, of course, you're going to be held accountable, right?
I see my name on
I don't see how you could ever decline that and get away with it.
I will quit. And I said, well, what if we don't put people's names next to it? I'll still quit. People will know it's me. Story 2.
Yeah, because, listen, this is why. So you got developer A and developer B. And developer A, and it's equal share, right? So developer A does all of his tasks. Every time his name's next to something, he's on it, he's killing it, he's doing a great job. Developer B, let's say he slacks off, doesn't get to his tasks. It's very apparent, to the team when somebody's slacking off or somebody's underperforming, which, pressures that person, to either work harder, get with the gig, or get out. And people don't like being put on the spot like that. People don't like accountability because people like to not be responsible for things in general. They don't want to believe it's their fault for something not working. And this is the easiest way for it to not be their fault. They just say, I don't want my name next to it.
When we were making the Outer Worlds, I wanted to put in, this is probably end of year 2, so we're still a year away. The combat AI wasn't really in yet, so I asked for a very simple combat aggression code to be added.
Okay.
This is how simple it was. Every time
so simple he can explain it to idiots like us.
They would see if that person was on the list of someone who'd shot them.
Okay.
If they weren't, they'd add them to the list, with the amount of damage they just took. If they were already on the list, they'd just add the amount of damage they took. Whenever they're deciding who to attack, they attack the person at the top of the list. That's it. That's all.
So for anybody that doesn't know kind of what he's talking about right there, it's aggro, right? So whoever's doing the most damage to that mob, it puts the names in order of descending order, top to bottom, most damage to least damage, and then the target swap will go to whoever's name's at the top of the list. So that's all he's talking about.
All I wanted. Keep in mind, the advantage of that basic AI, you can make lots of changes later. You can make them that it has the one at the top of the list. If it's different than the person you're attacking, the damage has to exceed the damage of the person attacking you by a certain amount before you change targets. You can take distance into account. You can take whether you can reach them into account, whether you have a ranged weapon into account. All that comes later. That's all I wanted.
My guy was asking asking for the scaffolding. That's all. Please, just please.
Grammar production query queue and came back with an estimate of 4 weeks. I pushed back saying the code I asked for was very simple. I've written it before. Would take about 45 minutes. It's basically, there's already a callback when you get hit. That's when you look to put them on the list. And there's a callback. There's a call when you want to pick a target. That's when you look at the list and see which one you want to attack. That's it. The programmer who it got assigned to came to me and said, I need 4 weeks. And I'm like, why? Walk me through what you're going to do. And he goes, you don't.
He says, why? Why? Why, guy? Go ahead and tell me, huh?
Understand. And I was like, I've coded this 3 times. Walk me through it. And he wouldn't. He left. He left angry. Lead programmer came back.
He leaves mad.
Started yelling at me, saying, if he says he needs 4 weeks, he needs 4 weeks. And I'm like, then I will do it. I'll have it done before lunch. And he said, no, because then people will have to support your code. I'm like, well, let me walk through. I'm going to walk.
Here's the thing. This is top notch. I love stuff like this because it's like the key part of this is where he offered himself to do it. He's not shitting on the developer, telling him that he's slow. He's not doing anything that he wouldn't do himself and asking for the same standard of something he would ask himself. And I think that's like the key ingredient to making that just absolutely hilarious because, this guy thinks he's going to get away with saying 4 weeks. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it okay before lunch. Like, Jesus, fine. I'm tired of, I'm just not going to deal with that drama for, something so basic. He doesn't even go into detail. Just says, I'll take over.
Walk you through what I want. And you tell me why this takes 4 weeks. He looked at what I wrote, which was about 10 lines of pseudocode on a whiteboard. And he goes, I'll come back. He came.
Everybody gets that face because they don't want to admit that they're wrong. So they're like, yeah, I mean, we'll see if we can spin something out of that, Like
back about an hour later and said, what about 2 weeks? And I said, do I have any options here?
Do I have options?
2 weeks. Story 3. Leonard and I talk about features.
So, moral of that story, right, is it doesn't take that long. And either they're unskilled or they are they're so afraid that they're gonna get like mess up and get fired that they're not willing to, honestly, like if I think it's just being unskilled. If they didn't have the knowledge and depth to know that it's just 10 lines of code, that's literally just a skill issue. I feel like I don't think that's overcautious at all. Yeah. He just didn't know how to do it, and he needed 4 weeks to figure out how to do it.
All the time, whether it's dialogues or system mechanics or story setting, we get very into it. Our voices may be raised. We're jumping out of our chairs to draw things on whiteboards. We're pacing back and forth. I know I've mentioned this before, but Anthony Davis showed up at our door and said, you guys have to stop yelling. Everybody's getting nervous. It's like mom and dad are yelling at each other. Still don't know who he meant was mom, but...
He says who's mom. It ain't me. I ain't mom. No, but, okay, so has anybody, like... This happens a lot to me because you get really passionate in your meeting, especially if it's something like you're working on and like you've put a lot of effort into, and it's not like you're screaming at each other, but like you do raise your voice and you take it an octave higher, so that way like it's just like your emotions and feelings coming out. It's like nothing personal. You don't hate the other guy or whatever. You're just like, I care about this a lot. You need to understand my feedback. And, it's a back and forth deal. Like at the end of the day, you just go get a drink with the guy, have a good time. But in the midst of it, like you can get like semi-heated, I want to say, but like not to where you're like fighting. It's just like I said, you take it an octave higher.
We explained that's just us talking. We're not mad, but we're trying to tease apart exactly.
Sweetie, that's okay. Mom and Dad we're just having a talk right now, okay?
Exactly what to do, and we're getting into it.
God, these developers are they're a bunch of pussies. All right, I'm just gonna say it. Like, if that's gonna bother you, I don't know.
So, what do those three stories have to do with each other? I'm starting to see in the industry, I shouldn't say starting, in the last decade, the last quarter of my career, I'm starting to see this rise of what I can only call development caution. An abundance of caution.
Development caution.
Of padding estimates.
What they're doing is you under-promise and over-deliver. So you under-promise. So let's talk in terms of money, right? Like your budget is set for $3 million. Say you're going to hit 2.9 but deliver 3.1. So the problem is these assholes are not even delivering over, right? They're still under-delivering and under-promising. But I don't think it's that at all. Just from his first story, I feel like it's a skill issue. I feel like these developers went to a coding camp for 6 weeks and got a job at Blizzard or wherever, and they put them at a keyboard, baby. See what happens. Like, there's no way what he just described, if that situation's real, and I mean, he looks like he's been coding for quite some time, but 4 weeks, I mean, he could have asked for some guidance. He could have, said, how can I achieve that? I'm not sure where you're getting that. But people are too prideful to admit when maybe they know less or are unable to do something. So instead, they give this crazy timeline of, this is what I need to get it done, when in reality, all you have to do is say, I don't know how to do that. Help me real quick so I know for the future. That's it. Have the balls to say when you're not good enough, because that's more respectable than trying to mask it with 4 weeks of development time.
Time estimates.
My opinion, obviously.
Wanting to go around and check with a lot of people to see if something's okay. Asking, should we do this? I'm not sure. Let's have a meeting. Frequently, people would want to have a meeting to discuss something, and those were the very people who would say, we have too many meetings. I can't get any work done. Now, caution.
Bro, it's like those people that they're always underperforming and saying, well, I never got trained, and then you give them more training. well, I didn't get trained. It's always a cycle of like, they didn't get trained on that. They didn't get trained on this. The reality is you just suck. You're not good at your job. You suck. Some people are good. Some people suck. You suck.
Good thing if it leads to less bugs, less stress. Also, I get the fact that because games cost more now, people are approaching it with this sense of caution, because you're not just going to be out a little bit of money. You're going to be out a lot of money if this game doesn't do well.
Yeah, we bumped it up to $70 now. So, and that's the thing is like you don't owe this developer nothing. You don't owe him anything. You don't owe him your kindness. You don't owe him your gratitude. The only thing that is a transactional relationship. I give you $70, you give me a good product. And if you don't give me a good product, I don't give you any more money in the future. And when you do that, you lose your job. And I don't care after you lose your job because you weren't good enough to deliver on our transactional relationship. That sounds harsh, but that's literally the reality of the situation. No one cares, or shouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't have some like metaphysical freaking relationship that transcends that, right? It is a consumerist relationship, and that's where the line should be drawn.
The thing that worries me, though, is games can also be a lot worse because of caution. And
true,
cautious, kind of
true and real.
They're like, no,
yes,
we're reducing bugs, we're increasing life work balance. People are less stressed, and I'm like, true, but you're also taking a lot less risk in a game, which in many games I think give them less charm. And yeah, even games that have jank have a lot of charm.
In his stories, I still do not see where there was caution. I don't see how they were being cautionary. It just sounds like if somebody came in my office and said, yeah, I need 4 weeks to do that, and I said, why? I'll get it done before lunch then. That just tells me there's a lack of knowledge somewhere, right?
Charm. My games have had jank.
Not caution. They're not scared of it.
Things where...
Well, they are scared of it because they don't know it.
In a bizarre way in certain circumstances, or NPCs say weird things or do weird things. It can be charming. But things have changed, and I know games have gone from being an expression of an idea of like artwork from a particular person or group of people into a corporate-driven, money-seeking instrument. And I get it. There's a lot of money going into these. In a way, though, I would argue they always were. You always were making these with the idea that,
I feel so vindicated listening to him say that to me. I feel so vindicated knowing that somebody on the inside also realizes that. Obviously, I know they realize it, but just hearing him say it out loud on an online forum in front of thousands of people, I'm like, fucking preach, dog. Oh my God, say it, daddy.
I hope it sells a lot.
Agreed.
But now,
it is not. There's no longer passion involved in these creations, right? Artwork, some of the greatest artwork in the world it's created, from the human experience, right? And you can say that's cringe, me saying that. It's kind of cringe. But it's true. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling and, history behind art. And video games are, another medium for that. And unfortunately, it's gone. It is turned into just a greedy hellhole of, let's hope I can make my bonus this year, and it's just that's not what it was.
Driven by this. That's why we have microtransactions. It's why we have pre-orders. It's why we have
microtransactions.
What we're starting to see lately, where games are, if you pay a little more, you can play it a few days or even a week early. Now, you can't always blame the...
You guys are going to hate me for this. The pay to play early thing, I think, is actually the least toxic form of trying to get the pay extra money out of the people, right? I honestly like to partake in it. I'm a full-time worker, 40 hours a week, and that extra time, because it's conveniently always at the start of a weekend or some kind of holiday. It's always right there, to line up, and I'll pay the extra $20 because it's not like a big deal to me, because I make a pretty good wage. I'm comfortable, and I'll shell out an extra $20 for that extra enjoyment, because I'm paying for entertainment ultimately. And if I can play it unhindered for a couple extra days, yeah, I'm going to do it, because time is more important to me than money at this point in my life.
Publishers or the developers for this, if people didn't pay for it, they wouldn't do it. It's like spam. If everybody stopped answering spam tomorrow, it would go away. But because a tiny percentage does, it's there for everybody to see. But, so I'm not really talking about the money-driven part. I'm talking about how the caution is dampening down the ideas. It's why I want to double down on this. I've always thought the indie space
double
is
down
a lot
KFC
richer
sandwich.
in ideas. Probably not money, certainly not money, but they're much richer in ideas because they take less. They have less caution and take a lot more risk. And unfortunately, what I see then is AAAs that dip into indie games for features and ideas. By the way, it's not just publishers and developers that I see all this caution. I've seen a huge rise in caution in game journalism. It's become the norm that no journalist wants to risk getting into an embargo situation where they're not given an early access code, so they can't write the reviews earlier than other people.
That I can see that he's kind of spinning off here, but there are a lot of caution and tiptoeing around the fact, so because they want to keep the relationship pure, they want to keep the relationship clean. I talked about this in my LCS video, like what's going on, and a lot of things that made it fun was the crassness, the some of the belligerence, and the shit talking. Let's be real. And unfortunately, sponsors, the people that give you money don't like that. It doesn't look good on their brand, so they're not going to support you. So it's a catch-22, and you alienate audiences because you're not who you once were. It's like you lost sight of yourself in the name of the dollar. It's sad.
They're worried about not being invited to press events or junkets, I think they're called. So a lot of them have gone a lot more cautious in what they say. I really miss the reviews. I'll name a couple, like Scorpia in the 80s and 90s and Deathlock in the 90s and early 2000s. Because those two reviewers said what they thought. If you put out a game, they'd skewer you for all the things that were wrong with it, but then they'd praise you for everything that's right with it. Now it's sort of like, well, we really like this, but they don't want to really double down on it because it may be something people don't like. So, let's say a journalist loves the diversity in a game. He may go, well, I'm not going to say that much because I don't want to come across as being pandering, and also some people yell when you talk about that.
Right.
So I just see a lot of the passion drain out of game journalism.
And a lot of passion in games, like I said earlier in the video, is like it's just drained.
And I guess this worries me because if I see this everywhere, if I see this in publishers and developers and now new people entering the industry, they don't have this passion anymore. So
where them nuts at,
I want to tell people, just go and make
Huevos Rancheros.
You don't need a committee to sign off on it. You can always go back and change it, or if you make something and it turns out not to be good at all and unsalvageable, throw it away. But that rapid iteration to get to some really good idea is a lot better than just being so cautious.
Yeah.
That you basically creep up to a very mundane game that doesn't show any kind of passion in its development. People can tell.
I don't think he gave examples of that, but I don't think he's necessarily wrong. Is that people do not take risks in games anymore. Think about some of the biggest releases. Obviously, Baldur's Gate 3, different. But Starfield was one of the most vanilla soy games I've played in the wild. I mean, it's the same formula, right? 2 + 2 = 4. It doesn't make a bad game, but does it make a game that's going to transcend time? And is it going to be remembered? Like, you think back Mario 64. That game, you could play it and it would still feels new in a way, because it has transcended, like its gameplay is so fun and so unique that it transcends time. You know, it doesn't, sure, the graphics, you can't see an actual drop of water or the veins in the leaf of lettuce or whatever, but it's fun, and that's what this whole thing's about. It's fun, and nobody does anything to make these games fun. They just go what's safe, what works. You know, 2 + 2 = 4. I'm going to make the game the same as, you know, just maybe tweak it a little bit, so put a fresh coat of paint on it, but it's the same.
So, I started with stories. Let me end with those 3 stories and how they kind of got resolved. So, I didn't even try to do the whiteboard solution when I made Outer Worlds. What I did is I made my own Confluence page called, like, I was Tim Kane's top 10 or something. It was in my Confluence space, and I wrote, here are the 10 biggest things I want looked at this week. And there were a few producers who would look at that page all the time. What was great about this solution, nobody could come and complain to me about it because it was in my Confluence space. My own personal but public Confluence space. Also, I'd like to point out that anybody could go to...
So he's like, I did it, the whiteboard thing still. I just did it in my own space. I mean, I don't know if he was the boss or, you know, whatever, but if I was the boss, I'd been like, you can get good with it or you can get out, honestly. Like, this is, you know, unfortunately, like, how we're going to have to hold accountability to people, and ultimately this is a business, and we need to make sure that everybody's performing etiquettely, right? And if people don't like that, if developers don't like that, if they want to be a leech and be toxic to the company, get out, you know? You hemorrhage money by keeping people like that, honestly. But, yeah, so I mean, if he was the boss, I would have just been like, get good.
Jeer at any time and say, what are the 10 most highly prioritized bugs, and who are they assigned to? So we already had that whiteboard virtually, but somehow it was okay that it wasn't called attention to. For the combat aggression code, I think I settled on 2 weeks, and I think it got done faster than that.
I bet it did.
I got it. I don't think I asked for anything after that. I didn't go and specifically ask for anything because I realized that I was being viewed as some sort of ogre when I knew something could be done faster.
Okay, so this is a fantastic point. I want to drive that home for him as well. This type of behavior creates, like, he's probably thinking, why should I even try? What's the point? So whether, you know, he thinks people think of him as an ogre, some people will think they're being, you know, mean, like whatever the case is, they will think, what's the point? And then their input, it silences them. It almost like pseudo cancels their opinion. And when you do that, when you cancel everybody's opinion, cancels everybody's, like, the way, like, speech and, you know, what they say and ideas, you lead to a vanilla world without flavor. Nothing has taste anymore. Nothing has style, you know?
There was no solution to it.
It's not unique.
Why, years ago I started thinking, ooh, this is becoming a problem. Same thing with Leonard and I yelling at each other. We just kept doing it. We're like, it's our office. We're shut the door. We're not mad at each other. But this is the way we get things done.
He's like, I'll do whatever the hell I want.
Noted that some people don't like it. We won't get things done like that with you. And let me tell you, I think there were people who felt like they missed out on not being parts of those conversations. Some people would come over. Charlie had his office right next door, and he was the lead designer on Outer Worlds, and he would come in sometimes and join in. Great. Other people didn't do that. You missed out. And I think you missed out on some really fun, active, engaging conversations about game development. But that's the way things are going.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I have a great solution other than reminding people to be passionate. But I just kind of want to talk about this because it kind of ties into bigger teams and longer development time.
And here's the thing. This is a great video. I'm going to link it to you guys. But this is a universal thing. How many people do you know at your job that are like this, you know, that get mad because metrics are sent out and they don't meet them? I mean, maybe it's you. And if it is you, like, the reality is maybe you need to step it up, because there is other people that can meet them. Obviously, there's, the weird situations where there's anomalies, right? But for the majority, there's people that are better than you. There's people that are worse than you. And, it doesn't matter. They need to be held accountable to make a good product, because that's all the business relationship is transactional. I want the developers to be the best they can be. And with him saying this, it's like they are opting to not be the best they can be. And that's unfortunate, especially and kind of worrying for the future of gaming. I mean, depending on how much this culture continues. So good video. But yeah, here you guys go.